In this episode, How Healthy Eating Feeds Cancer, we've included a companion guide. It's our brand new and free resource titled Kill the Cancer, 5 Life-Saving Ways to Quickly Attack Cancer's Weak Link. To get your free copy, go to our blog at shiftformula.com. That's shiftformula.com. Then go to this episode and download your free copy. Welcome to the Insulin Suppression Podcast, where it's all about going from hopeless to healed with certainty, right action, and science. Here are your hosts, Barbara and Charlie McDermott. Cancer has a weakness, and you're going to learn all about that in today's podcast. So what are we going to cover in today's episode?
Okay, in today's episode, 3 specific things. 1, why following the rules, especially dietary rules, are oftentimes the very reason we find ourselves struggling with waist weight and cancer. Second thing we're going to cover is what is exactly the connection between waist weight and, I would say, cancer fate. And the variable in the middle is carbohydrate. And the third one is what variable exactly do I need to know about that can really tip the odds in my favor and against cancer's favor.
Yeah. So what is this connection between cancer and belly fat?
Yeah, right. Well, one of our clients just recently shared that with me. She's just gotten through both breast cancer and thyroid cancer. And the doctor said, okay, you're doing great, you're clear, but the number one, most important preventative measure for you is to get rid of what you're carrying around your waist, the dreaded belly fat. And everyone tries to no avail to get rid of that, right? So here's where we go into these specifics. Number one, this particular person followed every dietary rule, eating plant-based.
Most do,
opting for plant proteins like rice and bean combination rather than going with animal proteins. Making sure they get lots of fresh fruit and vegetables every day and plentiful whole grains. Eat organic and eat real and eat whole. And with all of that directive, what we don't realize, even our so-called DASH diet, the Mediterranean diet, and all these focused ways of eating, they really come down to very simply a foundation that is carbohydrate focused. So a plant-based diet is a carbohydrate-based diet. And okay, plants are not bad, they're not good, they're just fuel. Okay, and when you can understand the science that way, but here's where following the rules was creating the belly fat in the first place. When we eat a carbohydrate-focused diet, there's very little protein or animal protein and very little fat involved, so it's carbohydrate heavy. All carbohydrate, whether it's organic or not organic or ancient or new, whatever, every carbohydrate is broken down to glucose. And now's where we get interested in the whole cancer connection. Glucose, have you ever heard people say that, sugar feeds cancer or, that kind of idea? Well, it's not so much that it feeds, it fuels. Glucose from carbohydrate fuels every cell of our body. It's one of our body's fuel sources. And it also fuels cancer cells. Okay? And when we eat a carbohydrate-focused way of eating, diet, we are plagued by cravings. We're usually perpetually hungry. So not only are we eating carbohydrate a lot when we meal, but we're probably eating even more often. We might even be eating 6 times a day because we were told that we're better off doing that.
Well, I think you get in your head that the more nutrition, the better. And you end up, probably in many cases, overeating.
Yes. And we don't even know we're overeating, right? That's where I get angry, where people just don't know. So when our body is consuming more glucose, fuel, than we actually need, we end up wearing, and it's blood sugar, by the way. Digested carbohydrate is glucose, is blood sugar. It's all the same thing. We end up wearing it around our waist, okay? Because there are 2 kinds of cells that are really sensitive to insulin. Insulin's the hormone that opens up the cells of our bodies and allows glucose, fuel, to go in. The most powerfully sensitive to insulin is those damn cancer cells, especially glucose-sensitive cancers, like breast cancer is an example, right? But the second most sensitive to insulin is the cells around our waist, because glucose doesn't get stored as glucose. Okay, I have extra fuel I don't need. Should I carry the sugar around? The body converts it to fat. We can carry fat around. And it's a lot easier to carry around our middle than any other part of our body. So, carbohydrate becomes glucose, becomes belly fat. So following the rules of a plant-based directive, well, it's not a bad thing. It's just not necessarily doing what we think it's doing. Nutritionally, we're in this place of like, I'm going to get the most nutrition possible. What we don't realize is we pay a metabolic toll, a heavy price. Okay, so there's that following the rules. It doesn't work out for us. Okay. The second thing we said we're going to touch on is the waist weight carbohydrate cancer fate, I say, connection. Why does belly fat and cancer have such an intimate relationship? Why did that doctor say get rid of that belly fat? It's your best preventative measure. Because as we accumulate belly fat, it actually starts to behave kind of like a gland in that it starts secreting compounds like a gland would secrete. Pancreas secretes insulin. And other glands in our body, thyroid, we know that secretes lots of different hormones. Well, believe it or not, belly fat accumulated can actually secrete estrogen. So we've now created an estrogen factory by following the food directives of a high carbohydrate focused way of eating, and now the belly fat I've created from that way of eating is actually supporting breast cancer growth. And this is why men even can develop breast tissue when they have a belly fat situation. That belly fat starts putting out estrogen. So the waist weight carbohydrate cancer fate connection is, let's think about it. If we stopped eating foods, if we stopped eating foods that created so much glucose, we wouldn't have belly fat and we wouldn't be fueling cancer cells. It's a lot of wins. It's a lot of wins.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say, whether you're battling cancer, whether you're surviving cancer,
you're post,
or whether you are just trying to
avoid it
right?
in the first place. Absolutely. We can completely thwart, because here's the cool good news. I said all the cells of our body use glucose for fuel, and cancer cells are especially sensitive. You know why they're so sensitive? Why cancer cells are engineered to be so sensitive to insulin? That's the way they get their glucose. Without it, they can't get their glucose, because that is their sole fuel. Now, you can also, it gets a little soft there. Protein can be converted to glucose, so we can say that cancer cells are quite industrious. They can find ways around just about anything. However, they need like 30 times more glucose than our healthy cells. Here's the cool thing, though. They're metabolically inflexible. This is how we can say that we can kill cancer cells. And we use that term loosely, but we can actually starve them. We can actually significantly curtail, hold back, cut off their fuel supply. Because the rest of our cells in our body, especially our brain, love using fat for fuel. The whole body can use fatty acids for fuel. Cancer cells can't. Okay, and that's really what our SHIFT program teaches. How to shift your body to utilizing body fat. So we can actually lose our belly fat, and while we're losing or using up our belly fat, we're starving cancer cells at the same time. There's a glorious win for our clients, right? And I guess the last specific, just to kind of wrap this up, right? We talked about what's that one variable, the one thing all of us, any of us, and this particular client of ours is now focusing on that can resolve belly fat and cancer all in one swoop, not to mention a lot of other metabolic consequences and lousies that people are dealing with. The one variable is insulin. This is what happens. The surface dwellers of the world, good intentionally, try to create labels of good and bad, right or wrong, how to eat, right? Directives. And then when you look at it through the lens of insulin and the creation of glucose, which is cancer cell fuel, you start to say, wait a minute, that plant-based diet directive sure looks like a good idea. And then when you look at it through the lens of insulin, like, wow, wait a minute, that's a lot of glucose.
I was duped.
We were duped. We were duped. We were duped too. So that's the connection.
And to help you connect it even more so, make sure you download the free resource. You might be watching this on YouTube or social media. There should be a link where it'll take you to our episode, our blog on our website, shiftformula.com is our website. You can go to our blog and find this episode, download this resource. Maybe a 10-second overview of the resource.
I put together 5 questions that can help any one of us really understand cancer and how it operates within us. We think it's a nutritional problem, but it's a metabolic and hormonal problem. And nutrition can really trip us up because we're looking at all these little nutrients to somehow create an arsenal that's going to fight against cancer. And here we can just starve it. Working smarter, not harder, and more certainly.
This is a topic we should really drill down and we should look into doing a training at some point.
I'd like to put a webinar together because those of us who understand, when you know something, you can apply the action because you just know the outcome is guaranteed. Yeah.
So if you're watching this or listening to this and there's a comments section, let us know if you'd be interested in that training and we'll put something together. For now, we're going to, any final remarks before we move on?
No, just don't forget to download the resource.
All right.
It's a good one.
Till the next episode, we'll talk to you later.
Keep calm and shift on. See ya.
Remember to grab this episode's companion guide, Kill the Cancer, 5 Life-Saving Ways to Quickly Attack Cancer's Weak Link. To get your free copy, go to our blog at shiftformula.com. That's shiftformula.com. Then go to this episode and download your free copy.